Hi, I'm Judi Farrell and this is the Chai Sessions, my podcast for Merchant City Yoga where I talk with yoga pals old and new, trying to understand better what it is we're doing when we practice yoga and why we do it. In this edition of the Chai Sessions, I'm talking to friend and MCY colleague Ema Čulík about the classic spiritual text, the Bhagavad Gita, about what it is and about why she believes it's so relevant for all of us practicing and teaching yoga in the modern world. Ema explains we find the verses of the Gita in the middle of an epic story, a drama full of characters and circumstances. In the telling of the story, what it means to be human, what it means to be in this world, is revealed. And like any good story, we can recognise some of ourselves and our relationships in it, and it helps us make sense of things. In our conversation, Ema talks about how much she loves the lively discussion that happens in a space where people are talking and sharing about their lives, and how that's reflected in her approach to teaching the Bhagavad Gita. It all comes down to life, she says. We're humans living. I genuinely appreciate Ema sharing how the Gita really came to life for her and has helped her navigate challenges in her own personal and professional life. After introducing Ema, I start by asking how she would describe what she does. I hope you enjoy our conversation. Ema, thank you so much for joining me again on the Chai Sessions.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So, this is your third time. So I feel like I should be introducing you as regular guest
Hi.
Ema rather than guest Ema. And for those of you who haven't met Ema yet, Ema teaches Vinyasa and Yin here at the studio, and she also leads our monthly Yoga Philosophy Club, which offers a really informal and relaxed and supportive space to start to explore some of the teachings that the philosophy that underpins the practice of yoga might have to offer us. And also Ema offers courses here rooted in the classical texts associated with the yoga tradition as well. And in those courses, what she does is helps us try to understand them a little bit better, and maybe even challenges us to put some of what we learn into practice as well. So welcome.
Oh, thank you. That's a really nice introduction. I love that.
Well, my first question I was thinking was going to be, before we get into the Bhagavad Gita, which is why we're sitting here today, was how would you describe what you do?
Yeah. I guess I was trying to summarize this recently, and I was trying to think about what the crux of it is that for me it all comes down to life, right? So the fact that we are humans living. And I thought about calling it yoga philosophy for life, because it's not about, so I like academic stuff, I have an academic background and I like close textual study, but that's not what I teach, because I don't think that most people want that. What I love is the lively discussion that happens in a space of people talking and sharing their life, right? And so that's what we do. That's why I called it a philosophy club rather than a philosophy lecture or philosophy class, because I'm not here to lead you through a PowerPoint presentation. The way that I do it is we have questions and jokes and often memes and other things. I want to kind of bridge a gap between something that feels very far removed in the past and maybe also culturally, and show that the people who are, writing and thinking about this stuff are as human as us.
And what's amazing, isn't it, is how there are actually really common threads of being human, that it was obviously a similar existence, albeit in a very different environment all that time ago. Being human was being human.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. And I think that if you can do a practice, the physical practice or a meditative practice, whatever, and feel that it works, because it does, we all know it does, in the same way, a text and a philosophy can have a big impact on you, and what happens in my experience and the experience of the people that have explored it with me is that you can see yourself in it. which is just really comforting.
And there's a common thread, isn't there, through all of the texts about learning through experience. That, you know, it's lovely to read and listen, and that's a part of the process, but really it's about diving in and experiencing it for yourself.
Yes, exactly. It's beautiful.
So let's get started. Like I said, we're here to chat about the Bhagavad Gita ahead of your new course that we have coming up.
Yeah.
So I thought a really good place to start would be what is the Bhagavad Gita, and perhaps looking at why it might be important for those of us who are teaching yoga and practicing yoga in the modern world.
Yeah. So the Bhagavad Gita.
So just a tiny question, Emma.
Right, yeah, I know.
Not
I'm
much
like,
in there.
am I talking about, you know.
How long have we got?
Right. Well, why is it... So what is the Bhagavad Gita? I think there's different ways that I could answer this question. But I think that what is the Bhagavad Gita in terms of how it's relevant to us as practitioners and as teachers? You know, so it is a kind of a spiritual text, if you will. I wouldn't say that it's a religious text necessarily, because it's not sectarian and it doesn't ask you to believe in anything specifically. So there's that thing. It is kind of mystical thing, a mystical 700 verse poem, if you will, which is embedded in the Mahabharata, which is a 100,000 verse poem. But the Mahabharata it's an epic, it's a story. It's kind of like a drama. It's not like a mystical revelation itself. And then in the middle of it, you have this jewel, which is the Gita, which is kind of revealing something about what it means to be human and what it means to be in this world. But the point that it's in this kind of story, epic drama text means that it is anchored in the world, and it has characters in it, and it is a drama as well as being like a mystical thing. And why I mention that is that it's something with players, with humans in it. So it's all about how you be in the world, right? So it's not just like, here are the levels of reality and you know, the stages of consciousness and you know, things that feel very inscrutable. It's something which almost immediately you can look at it and see the messiness of your life reflected in it. And so that's why it's relevant for us as humans, you know, generally. Why I think it's relevant for us in the modern world in particular is one of the big messages of the Gita is that the world is really big and feels like often like too much to understand. And that's really how things feel now. You know, almost more, obviously this text was composed like, I don't know, about 2,000 years ago. And they didn't have social media, and they didn't have news from all across the world, and they didn't have all the many things that we have to juggle. I'm sure they had other things to juggle. But it almost feels more relevant than ever of like, how do we balance and bring together these different things that are in our life? How do we find ourselves in the center of it when there's all this noise, you know? And we really don't have a lot of opportunities and space to kind of stop and be like, oh, like, here's who I am, and here's what I think, and here's what I want to and ought to do in my life. And so for me, the Gita has really kind of been like a great companion in the experience of kind of finding myself in the middle of everything. Yeah.
So as you're talking there, a couple of things come to mind. So the way you've described it there is actually really, I'm going to say, friendly, because stories is something that we've all grown up with.
Yeah.
And even as adults, like the explosion of all the streaming platform, that is all storytelling and all having a look at ourselves and our world and relationships and how people react and all of that messy being alive stuff, seeing it reflected in stories in others.
It's how we learn.
And often that
It's
can
how we
help
make sense
us.
of things, yeah.
Yeah, because I was actually just listening on the way in the car, there was somebody being interviewed today about International Book Day.
Yeah.
And they were, and I've read about these statistics before, and I don't have the exact statistics with me, but children who grow up in households that don't have books and access to stories are much more likely to run into difficulties and challenges later on in life. Whereas those that have grown up reading stories and being read stories seem to have absorbed some of the wisdom and teaching in those stories. Yeah. Well, that was really interesting. So maybe we as adults need to have more of that mindset.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we still like make sense of ourselves with stories, and I think that, you know, there's plenty of that available. I think it's just more about kind of shifting sometimes you can use stories to look away from yourself.
As escape.
Yeah, and sometimes
which isn't bad.
It's fine. I also have my things that I like to watch, which are kind of definitely things that maybe I'm not constantly watching the Mahabharata every night.
Housewives of Chelsea or something.
It's a little bit different genre, but similar format actually. But so stories can, if we allow them to, reflect us back to ourselves. I really like this one, the Gita, because it feels, I think because it is a drama, it's a story, and it is within stories you can, like, humanity can come out and like personalities can come out, and so it means that you can kind of engage and connect with it in more than an intellectual manner. That's the other thing, is that, you know, it's a drama, but it's also a poem, and I like poetry. I know that not everyone does. But like some of the images in it, which are so beautiful, like, you know, your mind being carried around like the wind, or like drawing your head in like a turtle, or like the candle in a still space. Like, these are strong images that can sit with you and, you know, like sit with you and then affect you over time, you know, as they get imprinted on you. The other thing is that, like, so yeah, it's a poem, it's a story, it's a philosophy. If you want, it can be a theology, but it doesn't have to be. It's a really multifaceted thing that takes loads of different approaches, which means that there is always going to be something for everybody in it. So yeah, but it teaches to different levels, doesn't it? So that kind of takes me maybe quite nicely onto my next question, because when I first approached the Bhagavad Gita, did not see myself in it at all, and in fact was fairly put off by the setting and the characters and the story. And so I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about how you approach the text and how you use it and how you work with it. Yeah. So, like, basically there's an interesting question about whether the battlefield is a real battlefield or it's like a metaphorical battlefield. What I like to do is, I never want to deny any aspect of the text. I don't want to say, it's not really a real battlefield. No. I don't want to be like, it's only a metaphor. Like, I think that all the levels are there. I think that we should let the levels, the one that speaks to us, speak to us. And certainly as a teacher, I'm always trying to bear all of them in mind and not kind of try to throw one out or the other. That's for me. Because different people respond to different things. Exactly. So, like, for me, what really helped to kind of understand the battlefield thing, because I know that can be quite off-putting, is learning a little bit more about where they came from, these ideas. You know, so Arjuna, the central character of the Gita, he's a kshatriya, which means he's a warrior. And you think, I'm not a warrior, you know, my job isn't killing people, what's that got to do with me? But then, like, you learn that the function of a kshatriya within the Indian system is not only one of just like going off and killing people, it's a defender and it's a hero. And so then you can be like, what in me is defending me, and what in me is like, can I be the hero of my own life, right? Which, so looking to cultivate those qualities. Well, exactly that. Well, this is the thing. And so I do approach it in terms of, so the way that I approach it really is, I read it And when I feel something that shines a light on me, then I zoom in on that, because I know that there might be scope there for shining a light on things for other people too. And so we talk about that, and then we unpack that, and I use modern language and kind of down to earth examples and life examples to kind of come at it and to look at the dilemmas, in a relevant way. Yeah.
You don't have to answer.
Okay.
But I was wondering if there are any examples that you can give us of maybe where it's been helpful.
Okay, yeah.
To you.
So
you don't have to.
No, I won't tell like all of the color of my entire life, but I was thinking about this, like, what was the moment at which the Gita became something that really came to life for me? Because it was probably about...
Yes, good way to frame.
Yeah. So because I did, I kind of looked at it a little bit some years ago, and I remember when I did the teacher training and I wrote about it, certainly certain things started to open up for me, but it didn't become so important to me as it has now. And so I'll kind of frame this that, first of all, I got really into the Yoga Sutras. Like basically when I first started doing yoga, like more than 10 years ago, I almost immediately got into reading the sutras, and it really appealed to me.
Why do you think?
Well, I think because the Yoga Sutra, there is a lot that's practical about it, but at the center of it, there's a kind of asceticism. Because it's kind of about, like, the ultimate goal of the Yoga Sutra is Kaivalya, which is pulling away from the world. And I used to be really into ascetic kind of approaches and discipline.
Okay.
And control. Right. And I think that some of us
that's possibly a whole other podcast for a whole other day.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, look, many of us, yoga gives us that thing where you can kind of take things into your own hands, and you feel like, oh, if I do this, I can affect how I feel and I can affect how my body is and things like that. And certainly that's the thing that I was doing before. And so I had that attitude to a lot of my life. And I thought, and this is like a very West of Scotland thing, which is like, I'm just going to like put my feelings to the side and like do the thing that I'm supposed to do. And kind of, the things that I was practicing and reading kind of really fed into that. But the thing is that when you have too much of an ascetic and disciplined approach without anything else, you lose yourself. Because all you do is like what I've got to do, and you actually get disconnected from what you're really feeling. And so the moment that the Gita started to really come to life is when all of that started to crumble. Because if you can't really see where you actually are, then you can't work with what you are, your tools, your resources, your energies. You can't work with it because you're always denying it. And so like I ran into a brick wall, everything started to crumble that I was trying to control. Like basically there was like professional situation and also personal relationships that I was like trying to hold together like this, and I couldn't anymore, and it just fell apart. And then the Gita, like, I happened to be reading it at the same time, and it was, again, like I like the word companion, because it's not like it did it for me, but the words of comfort that I found in there helped me to, amidst the rubble of like everything that had crumbled, start to see myself, arising out of the destruction. Because, and it's things like, the Gita basically, it says you can only do what you are. You can only follow your own dharma. And your dharma is based on your qualities, which you get from nature. And it says, one of my favorite verses is, all beings follow their nature. What can repression achieve? Repression. That's what I was doing before.
Yes.
And so then it says, notice where you are really. Be honest about what the situation really is. And then you have to work with it. Yeah. Because like a big theme about the Gita is feeling disappointed that things haven't gone your way.
Yes.
Or that they're not how you think you would like them to be.
Yes.
And you can just be like, things haven't gone how I want them to go. And then you can, be petulant, and then you can like act out, and then you can like, pull away from your own life and like be like fall into escapism, or you can lean into it. And that's what doing your Dharma is being like, so where am I? What have I got? How can I bring these things together? And then you can rejoice in like the things that you're doing, because they're yours. They're absolutely yours.
I love the bit where it says better to do your own Dharma badly than someone else's.
Exactly.
Well. I do get a little bit of Dharma anxiety though, because I'm a bit like, what is my Dharma? What if you don't know what your Dharma is? But again, that's probably another conversation for another day. But better to be you and do you, air quotes, badly. Because really, what is that anyway?
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm not like, no one can tell anyone else what their Dharma is. That's like the whole thing. And what is beautiful about the Bhagavad Gita is that it's not a rule book. It's kind of like, it's not really a book because it's not a thing that you read and then like, it's like bam, 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 the answers. The way that the story and the way that the imagery and the way that it's kind of laid out works is that it kind of activates parts of you which want to know, and it provides space through the comfort that it gives, because it's very validating, because it's like, I see you, human. I know you're struggling. Me too. This is what we can do, maybe. And then it gives you space where you can start to be okay with being here. And when you can be here, some of the other voices start to fall away a little bit. And then it starts to just like get really loud about what you need to do. And how does that happen? It's because when you can listen to what makes your heart sing, that's the thing that I find that a really helpful guide. And secondly, because it talks a lot about doing your work, which doesn't mean going to your office and paying your bills. Yeah. Paying your bills can be a Dharma too, because it's taking care of your material existence and the ones of the people you love. But also, it talks about, so doing your work is, what can you offer? And it can be an offering to, a deity, if that's your inclination. Or it can be, to use this phrase, it's what can you bring to the table of life? I mean,
because that's one of the things that's really stuck with me right since the first exposure to the Gita, where I didn't get anything about anything, and I was like, what on earth am I was having to read it for the teacher training, is that idea of doing the work for the sake of doing the work, doing the work as an act of service. And obviously what that means is going to be completely different to everybody that reads it. But like I say, it was just something that really stuck with me right from the very beginning.
The idea of work, and really I don't like the word work, because we have so many,
it's a slightly different context.
We have we have nuances in our mind where we're like, oh, it's the thing we've got to do, or like office jobs and stuff like that. I see it as like almost like when you say life's work, right? And that kind of thing of like, because I remember from primary school having a sense of like, I really want to make something beautiful in the world.
Okay.
Yeah, that was always my feeling. And it could be something literal in terms of like, I want to make a painting or something like that. I
never had a clue.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I just kind of felt that. And now I do have that feeling that we make something beautiful every time we step into that studio, whether it's a philosophy or whether it's asana, because we're coming together and being in a space and sharing an experience and an idea together, and that feels very beautiful to me. Yeah, I've kind of gone off the track of like, what is your Dharma? But
that's okay. I'm going to bring it back to because that quite nicely leads into like, I wanted to kind of wrap up today by talking about the new Gita course that you're going to be offering. and I wrote these down. So in your description
Yeah.
for the course, you talk about how your approach employs the threefold practice of, now please excuse my pronunciation, Shravana, Manana,
Nididhyasana.
Nididhyasana. And I thought you could maybe talk a little bit about what that actually is going to look like for the people that come along.
Right, exactly. So what it is Shravana, listening, Manana, using your manas, your mind, contemplation, but also consideration and discussion. I'm going to unpack this in a wee second. And Nididhyasana is contemplation. So it's kind of a more personal relationship with the material. So Shravana, and it's not, so listening, it's not going to be like,
Wah, 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 wah.
yeah, no. As much as I love to talk, I love to talk with people as opposed to at people, actually. And so we will look at the verses, because that's kind of the point. We don't have the time in 4 weeks to look at every single verse in the entire Bhagavad Gita, unfortunately. But we'll look at the key verses. I'm going to split it into, we've got 4 weeks together. So the first one is about the world. The second one is about karma and like what we do, work if you want. The third one is about dharma. And the fourth one is about non-attachment, and then the world. So it's kind of, it's actually like a circle in a way, these four.
Right.
But people can come to the individual sessions if they want, obviously, but like there'll be like a kind of circular narrative to the whole thing. And so like there'll be listening where we will like hear the verses, talk about the verses, talk about what they mean. And then each week it'll be verses relevant to that theme. And then we'll have a bit of discussion and also a bit of play, like little exercises that we can do within the context, because as we said, it's a living text.
Yes.
It's a text for living. And so a little bit of exercises sounds like a fun thing that we can do. And then contemplation, I always like to include little questions that people can take away. And so I did this. We had a Gita course back in September 22, and we had that at that point. We had it on the Yamini Yama course as well. And they're not questions that, it's not homework, but it's something that you can sit, maybe now, maybe in 5 years when you find it in a bookshelf somewhere, you can go, oh wait, what is it that makes me feel alive? Which of my activities give me energy? Which of my activities make me feel joyful? Which of my activities give me a sense of lightness in the world? You can be like, oh. And so there's that. And so there's a kind of, it's about personalizing it, because there's no, like we said, there's no right answer with all of this. There's a starting point, which is, the words on a page, which is the translation, the transmission of the teachings over the 1,000 years. And then you've got it coming to life in between, in the relationship and the space of the discussion. And then you've got from here to here to here, the internalization of what actually resonates with you personally. Yeah.
Do you know, and what strikes me about that as you describe it is it's entirely the process of meeting everyone where they are.
Yeah.
With this stuff.
Yeah. Because the thing is that there's no point otherwise. The texts meet us where we are.
Yeah.
And the texts don't ask anything of us at all. They're just there. They're like, here I am with all my wisdom.
It's all our stuff layered on top of it.
And I really feel like that. And that's like the most valuable and important thing, because also we're all going to change over time. Like my relationship to the texts and things have changed and will change. And I'm excited to see where it's going to go. Yes. It changes all the time in my like ongoing study. And every time I have a course like this, I feel differently about it as well, because we're having a lively exchange and learning from each other. It's a relationship.
Perfect. Please, to stop. Emma, thank you so much, because clearly we could just go on.
Yeah, I know.
On and on.
Now I've got going.
No, we're just getting warmed up. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
And till next time.
Yeah. All right.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Ema's course, the Bhagavad Gita, Living in the World, is live and in person here at Merchant City Yoga. If you're interested in finding out more or joining her, all the details and booking are on the website. The course starts Sunday the 5th of May and runs for 4 weeks. But even if you can't commit to all 4 weeks, you can join each session individually. These conversations are unedited, but I'd like to shout out Steph Northcote for smoothing out the wrinkles at the beginning and end of every episode. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends. You can even follow, rate and review to help others find us too. Until next time, thank you so much for listening.